Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com, and today we're going to talk a little bit more specifically male versus female, and I'm talking about biological male versus biological female. I'm not talking about identifying or converting or transitioning. I'm talking about what you were born at, what your hormones say you are, and how the treatment planning considerations can change in these patients, especially those who have a class 3 tendency, especially those who have a mandibular prognathic elevated SNB. Class 3 tendency. And if you don't know what any of this means, you definitely either need to take my phase 1 course, which is available at my website, Straightsmile Solutions, or you can go watch all the free content I have. Definitely what I'd say within the phase 1 playlist is the best information. There's going to be a lot of videos about class 3 treatment planning in kids. There's going to be videos about reading cephalometric x-rays in kids. So you want to check those out because I'm going to build on what I've talked about before. But specifically, we're going to talk about, we have a kid, they look a little class 3, we've double checked. I don't care if this kid is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We've made sure that it's not a CRCO shift. We've made sure we put them in CR. There's no slide. We've captured their Ceph. We've gotten their Ceph numbers. We've ran the Ceph numbers through the program for the right ethnicity and the right age. And we've seen that this patient is not maxillary retrognathic, but has an element, or at least majority of an element, of mandibular prognathism. If we have that, then this is a game changer. Unfortunately, that's my least favorable outcome because I'd much rather than be maxillary retrognathic because that's easy to fix in kids and it usually won't get worse. The maxillary retrognathism tends to happen a little bit more in Asian populations and is less likely, from my experience, to happen in Caucasian populations, but that's just from my experience. So in that case, if there's an element of I don't know that's going to come up, it's like, okay, this is probably going to get worse. How much worse? I don't know. A lot of times you can look at family members and you can say, hey, does anyone in your family have a slightly larger jaw than normal, assuming the kid is not adopted or is not a donor, which, it happens more nowadays than it used to. And usually they say, yeah, Uncle Joe, or, Aunt Sue has it or something like that, or even sometimes you can see it in mom and dad. It's very obvious. But in that case, you have to realize that in girls, it's probably going to get a little bit worse. I don't know how much a little is until age 15, 16. You obviously need to definitely learn a little bit more about the puberty aspect of it, where they are in puberty, because peak puberty is going to change depending on where you are. Some kids are going to get worse by 14, some might be 17 for girls. So you need to kind of dig into that a little bit more. You can take a hand wrist x-ray to learn a little bit more about it. In boys, it could be up to 21, 22. I've seen late mandibular growth spurts in kids with these tendencies up to 21, 22. So you have a 13, 14-year-old with this tendency, and you're like, okay, great. Sometimes you guys are like, let's do a bunch of IPR. Okay, this is going to get worse, so let's not do that. That is not going to solve the problem. We want to overcorrect. How are we going to overcorrect? Well, if it's mandibular prog, then we're probably not going to do a face mask, unless there is an element of maxillary retrognathism. We have to look at the harmony of everything. There might not be much we can do. In those cases, sometimes if they're still in mixed dentition, I'm going to put on a lingual arch to hold the leeway space, to hold the E space back. That gives me 1.5 millimeters on each side. I might even wait till they finish their growth to even do their ortho if they don't want to pay twice for ortho. Definitely taking out lower third molars can help. Definitely doing Invisalign and doing sequential distalization as soon as those lower third molars are out can help. I love to overcorrect, give them at least 1.5 millimeters of overjet, but still, I always make sure I have an additional informed consent form, additional on top of what you already have, that basically says, I'm not responsible if they outgrow this treatment. You guys are just going to have to pay again. Maybe I like to save that IPR for age 22, because if you do the IPR now, you just lost your wiggle room, So you can always retreat later, a little lower aligners, a little lower braces with some IPR at age 22. But we want to overcorrect, leave them with 1 millimeter, 1.5 millimeters, even 2 millimeters of overjet at the end, if possible, so that at age 15 and 16 to age 22, these boys have a chance of hopefully not having to have a jaw surgery or have a retreat. So just things to keep in mind. Make sure you're knowing what type of class 3 they are, and you're factoring this into your treatment planning considerations. And it doesn't matter if this patient is in phase 1, phase 2. You gotta hammer it into the parents that we can't just do braces, like we have to actually do some pretty funky things in order to give this patient a chance of not having another set of braces later, not damaging and cracking their teeth, or not needing a jaw surgery later. We have to strategize. All right, thanks so much.